Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's My Game show. I am joined, of course, by the fantastic Big Mike. Hi, Big Mike. And what are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to talk about, as the name suggests, 5 key messages that will help you win high-value new clients. Well, new clients. And it's a weird thing because that sounds a bit cliched, doesn't it? A bit, is he? But actually, that's what they do. And I'm going to explain how that works. It's a psychological thing, not a salesy thing, really.
I am very much looking forward to it. But before, whilst we just let people kind of sign in and log on, I just want to make something clear. I am wearing a onesie, and that is because it's freaking freezing in my house, and I refuse to put my heating on until November. So,
yeah, fair enough. I, on the other hand of the spectrum, am in tropical gear today because I've been talking to my Australian client again. And so I feel it's the summer there. He told me it's 30 degrees.
That's just a slap in the face at this point.
Unkind. It was a slap in the face. Wasn't necessary, but there you go.
That's a complete slap in the face. Well, I am glad that we've got the full end of the spectrum today because we are going to have a great show. So before we kind of get started, everybody always knows that we really enjoy this show to be as interactive as possible. So we're obviously talking about key messages, as Mike mentioned. Can you just let us know in the comments, when it comes to your key messages, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I don't feel very confident in them at all, and 10 feel like, no, I've got it nailed, cursed. Can you just let us know in the comments where you are on the key messages scale? 1 to 10, let us know. Okay, Mike. So at the beginning, you sort of briefly touched on how important key messages are. Can you just sort of elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, we did cover this in a little bit in last week's show when we talked about social media. And that if before you engage with someone, you're going to want to know whether there's someone worth engaging with. You know, we're surrounded by messages. I think the average person in a day gets about 4,000 messages, which is enormous, really, when you think about it. God knows where that figure came from, but I've seen it in many different places. So it must be true because it's on the internet.
As we know, that's always
true. But the point is, it doesn't matter. There's a lot. So yours will just get lost if you're not careful. So we talked last week in the show about gradually dripping out your key messages, almost like putting pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. And then suddenly they've got the whole puzzle there in front of them. They know what you're about. Similar sort of thing in your sales collateral, where you can actually put that information into the sales collateral in a way that people can appreciate it. But when you're talking to people, it's a little different. When you meet people for the first time, when you're having those Zoom meetings, when you're having those drop-by coffees, when you're just speaking to people and trying to get these key messages across, particularly when you meet someone for the first time, because you get a very short space of time in which to say things from which they'll then respond, that's interesting, I'd like to know a little bit more, or I'm interested in this person or what they've got to say or what they do. And that's what the key messages do. So you have to have them nailed.
Okay. Now, you've sort of been referring to the key messages and you've been giving them a sort of helicopter term, haven't you? Which is
an elevator speech, yeah.
Which I traditionally hate because I find it very a very American premise, and I think it's misunderstood a little bit. So just can you just elaborate on that just a little bit for us?
Okay, so for those that don't know what an elevator speech is, as the name suggests, it comes from our cousins across the pond. Else it would be called a lift speech, wouldn't it, really? Yeah, but essentially, it's you standing next to someone important in a lift or an elevator, and you've got 90 seconds in which to tell them what you do, right? So it's really important to be able to articulate some key information about yourself to the other person, to which they would say, oh, that's interesting, come and see me. I mean, that's the practice. In reality, you know, there is a great myth, the great elevator speech myth. I don't know anyone that's ever delivered an elevator speech like that. I mean, I suppose they might have done, really, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is, if you can deliver an elevator speech, not that you ever would, but if you can deliver an elevator speech, it means that you've got all that information at your fingertips and you can articulate it. And that is crucial. So don't for a second think that in fact, it is, here it is, look, don't for a second think that I'm expecting you to deliver it in this way. It's simply a test, a structure, a format, a framework, if you will, to get to know these key messages about yourself and deliver them.
Okay, all right. So, building on that, Mike, you better keep your promise that this isn't going to be about that. But can we briefly remind ourselves what the key messages are? We did touch on them last week in last week's show, if anybody was watching then. But can we just have a reminder for either those who didn't manage to watch last week's show or those who've just forgotten?
Yeah, sure I can. Here they are. So I'm going to talk you through these and explain what part each one plays in this little dance that you're having with people out there. So to begin with, who do you trade with? Your ideal clients, the people you trade with most, and why they would be interested in engaging you. The trigger, the challenge, the problem, the opportunity, whatever exists, and they need you or someone like you to help them to deal with that. That is the opener. And the reason that's really important is that it creates that bond. If I say something that applies to you when we're speaking, it will get your attention. You'll zero in on me. So, if I say, well, we typically work with, and then I say something that is you, I describe a person that is you or a company that is you. And then I say, and these people normally have this problem, and I say a problem that you have, I am moving into the zone with you now. You go, oh yeah, okay, then well, what's he got to say for himself about this then? And that's the point of it. It's like, have you heard that thing in if someone says your name in a crowded room, you'll hear it.
Yeah.
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 It's kind of like that. It's a sort of, you're saying something and people pick up on it, and yeah, that's me. That is, it creates that initial connection.
Yeah,
Great.
creates the connection. Okay.
That's the foundation to build on. And then you need to be able to summarize what you do. Now, these two things are really interesting. In fact, the top three are really interesting because what you can do is have a headline, which summarizes it almost. And then you can dig deeper if you need to. And I'll demonstrate this a little later in the show because I'm going to do an example really for you. But you've got to be able to deliver it at a headline and then dig in if you need to and really illustrate and pad out what that means if the opportunity arises and if you think the other person's interested. So what you do, again, is kind of a headline. You don't want to go in there with all sorts of in-depth descriptions because you'll lose them. It's just essentially, well, I've defined who you are and what the problem is. And now I'm going to say, this is what I do, which cures that problem, which brings me neatly to the third of those, which is the outcome that you get. Now, again, there has to be different levels on this because if you're a recruiter, say, and the outcome is to find a candidate and place them.
Pretty standard outcome, isn't it?
Well, so what, really? That's just describing what all recruiters do. You have to put your slant on it. I'm not talking about USPs because we do that in a second. You have to put your slant on it, something that's unique or different about you and the way in which you do it, not necessarily what the outcome is. And then obviously your USPs, up to three of those, really. I mean, one if you've got a really big one, or one which you've got a knockout USP. Don't forget as well, Kirsten, this is, you're just trying to grab attention. There's plenty of time. You're not going to make a sale on this.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I was going to say, this isn't about selling, is it? This is about literally making someone go, tell me more, or carry on talking to me, or let's carry on walking when we leave the elevator if we're to continue the metaphor. That's what this is. It's about piquing enough interest for somebody to say, this person may have something for me, even if it's just an interesting point of view. Let's carry on talking.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's a connection, creates a connection. And it is so important. I can't stress how important it is that whatever you do, when you're interacting with people who don't know you very well, but you think that they would be decent clients, you need this information because without it, you'll just get lost in the maelstrom of everybody else. And then people wonder why they don't sell enough because they can't crack these damn messages really. And then you can build on them later when you come for the conversations. You can dig deeper, you provide more information. But this is it. This is the thing that creates a connection. So USPs, you just need one or two, mate, up to three. One or two is enough, really. This is why people use me. And then the proof of performance really comes from testimonials or case studies, particularly video testimonials, as we talked about last week. Because they're so much more powerful. I mean, you do them all the time, aren't you? Really? So,
yes, pretty much.
Why would you say they're more powerful?
Yes, two reasons. One, especially if you're in a consultancy based or in a relationship setting thing, people get to see you as a person, and if they form that connection with you now, it's a lot stronger. You don't have to do that hurdle later when you're explaining what you need. But also, I just think people believe it more. People are more likely to understand it more coming from an individual, whether it's you talking about yourself with your own services with passion and with, real enjoyment, or somebody else saying things about you that's slightly imperfect, that things are, they stumble over the odd word here and there or something. But no matter what it is, it comes across as massively authentic.
And the research on this is overpowering, really. It's apparently videos are 5 times more likely to be believed than the written equivalent, word for word, and for all sorts of reasons. But I think that those key messages, if you sum them all up, if you imagine, let me put them back onto the screen for a second. If you met someone for the first time and they could put a tick against all of those boxes for you, it's not a sale. I accept that. But would you want to know more? I mean, that's the question. Would you want to know more? Would you like to have a further meeting? Would you like to read stuff, research them a bit on the internet? I mean, that's what we're trying to achieve by all of this. I'll give an example, real life example that only happened 2 nights ago. I got a message on LinkedIn from someone I'm connected with, but I've had nothing to do with them at all. I have seen their name crop up on, I think they went to a couple of our webinars. I saw their name, but nothing, zip.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah,
and he's ringing up to engage, right? Which is like weird. It's like
always great when that happens, isn't it? It's like a warm hug.
Well, it took me by surprise a bit, really, because I get more and more of these, and I think it is because we are so visible on social media, and we do, as we said last week, we are communicating these messages in a subtle way. I hope
so.
But he knew all of this stuff about me. He knew it all. He didn't wheel it out like.
He didn't say, "I know that you do this with these people. I know that you get these outcomes." That's not what he said.
I mean, what he did say was, "I've watched all your stuff," which was a bit freaky. But the point I'm trying to make is that whatever we'd done to get this information across, to send out the jigsaw puzzle pieces and connect it up, and meant that when his time had come to engage, he still needed to know more. He needed to know how much I charge, the way in which I engage, the flavour of what we do, the subjects that we cover, all of that stuff, obviously. But that's what you do in a sales pitch. This is pre-sales pitch. This is about getting me to that position where I can pigeonhole myself, in a sense. And that's why it's important. Whether you use social media or whether you don't, it's still really important to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, we hate to use it, don't we? But it's sort of the dating analogy, isn't it? Like, this is the first date. On a first date with someone, you don't propose to them there and then, because that would be weird. Although some people do. I've read stories.
Richard Nixon apparently proposed to his wife on the first date. Look how that happened. Turned out.
I don't know. I wonder if she regretted it. But it's about getting across that information to somebody where they're like, oh, okay, no, I'll have a couple more meetings. I'll see how I get on with them. And Pam's done a really good comment here, which I really enjoy. If someone asks you what you do, you should be able to answer it by starting, well, you know how, and I very much enjoy that. And then you go into your key.
That's very true, Pam. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, you can, and you've got to naturalize it for yourself, in the sense that I hate that whole elevator speech. If you go down the route of you need to be able to learn the script and wheel it out, I don't think that those 5 pieces of information, if you're speaking to someone in an event for 10 minutes, say, then you should be able to leak that information out over those 10 minutes, either as an answer to a question or to just tell a story and illustrate it in a story. We train accountants to build relationships. I mean, it's a thing that we do. Not me, Pete does it, but we tell them to use stories a lot, because if you use stories, you can bring all of this stuff out in a story. We did it with Johnny, didn't we? A few weeks ago when he came on the show, talked about storytelling. It's a way of communicating this key information, and I really love it. So it's a big deal.
Okay, so I kind of want to build on this, because theoretically, I get it. I get that theoretically, this is a way for you to get these things away. But when it comes to actual using it, the tool, the sort of scenarios that you would use this in, and if we want to refer to it as our elevator pitch, when would we use this as an individual?
Okay, that's a good question. I think firstly, there are 3 main ways that you would use this. And we mentioned them last week, but I'm going to reinforce them again now. So the first one is social media. Predominantly LinkedIn, I guess, but it could be any of them, to be fair. And we know about that. And if you don't know about that, then watch last week's show. Okay. The second is in your sales collateral. So people are going to want to know this. They'll want to know more than this. or they want to know to the next level down, which I'm going to talk about in a minute with you. But they're going to want to know more. But they're certainly going to want to know these things to even begin to engage with you and go to the next level. And then the other thing, let me bring it up for you, is when you meet people in person.
Coming back now, isn't it? It's coming back. More and more people are having in-person meetings again, in-person.
Or even in these Zoom, I've seen Zoom networking events, and Pam runs one. You know, Pam and Ian run a very successful set of kind of networking-y type things. If you want to put a link, Pam, on the screen, we'll bring it up for you. But it you know, there are a lot of these instances where you've got to introduce yourself, where you are expected in a very short space of time, usually 30 seconds, to be able to get their attention. Perfect for this. Perfect. So let's
I think as well, just on that one, it's especially in person, if you've got junior members of your team or more inexperienced members of your team, especially if you're a business leader, in my experience, it tends to come naturally to those people. But for people who aren't aware of it, going to networking events or going out and socializing or meeting people and doing those things like that can be intimidating, because they know they're going to be asked these questions and they don't know the answers to them. So working with your team in order to find the answers here as well is another great way of sort of growing.
Metaphorically speaking, it's like putting on a pair of big boy pants or big girl pants. It kind of sends you out there because you're prepared. You're good to go. So when someone says, well, what do you, let me tell you what I do. Well, I work with people, you know how, or as Pam said, you know how, so it's great. And it's a great thing to train people to build confidence, which is why Pete does it. Pete does all this in the course for the accountants. It's great because he teaches them, gives them confidence that they can go and they're not going to look stupid and they're going to stand out for all the right reasons. So that's what it gives you. Let me bring this up.
Just quickly, I'm just going to bring up, this is the link for Pam, if Mike mentioned just a second ago, if you wanted to, go there. And
I'll leave that on the screen.
Yeah, and it'll be in the comments if you want to go.
We'll put it in the comments as well. Okay, good. Thanks for that, Pam. Right, so here we go. So this is a typical kind of elevator speech using that information that we talked about as key messages. So as you can see there, you know, I work with blah, 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 ideal clients who, and then the trigger, have this problem or this opportunity or whatever. And what I do is, and then the headline of your service, which you can then dig down further into, as I'll do in a second, which means that they end up with this result or outcome. And the main reason people use me is one, up to 3 USPs, but one normally is enough, or 1 or 2 at least. And then let me show you what my clients say about me. And then you've got to take them to a place where they can see what it is people are saying about you, give them a bit of confidence, right? So I've put together an example, which is my elevator speech.
My worst nightmare, isn't it, that elevator speech?
Yeah, it is actually. It's really bad. I've never done this in live ever. I mean, I don't go to lists very often, but even if I did, I wouldn't say, oh, by the way, let me tell you what I do, because it's like weird, isn't it? I think so anyway. So I'm not doing it. But this is essentially that key information, which if I was talking to someone for 10 minutes, all of this would come out, or pretty much all of it. So I work with owners of small and micro recruitment firms who just aren't getting what they want from their business. And what I do now, before I come to that, right? So what I can then do in the conversation is dig down on that. So I would say something like, typically, you know, they're not getting the lifestyle that they want. This is a combination of money and time. Money to spend in the time and time to spend the money. They don't have that set up. It's not what they want it to be, or they don't have the job that they want. The role isn't what they want. Their job satisfaction is low. They want that to increase, or perhaps financial security, which is like a really big thing for owners of businesses. They're nowhere near it. They're not making progress on that at all. And lastly, sometimes for a legacy, people aren't leaving the legacy that they want. They're just not, the business isn't something they wanted it to be. And those are the kind of issues. See, so I can expand upon that and talk about that as much as you like, really.
I suppose it depends on, if the other person would ask questions, this would be in a conversation. This wouldn't be you just talking at them. They'd probably go, oh, what do you mean by that? Or what do you mean they're not getting what they want, or something?
I'd have a little conversation about, you know, when you must know someone that's run a business that's reached 50 and realised that they've got to work another 15 years when they thought they'd be retired by then. It's because they're not planned it out, really. So what I do is help them to clarify what they want, which is like really important. And then again, I can expand upon what that means and how that works and whatever. And then we just build a business that delivers it. It's not rocket science, really. That's what I do. And so the outcome is basically, it's this really, they have the lifestyle, job satisfaction, financial security that they want. And if they're interested in building a legacy, well, they've got that as well. And so it's very clear. And again, I can dig into all of these. They're like they're like little hooks, really, that you can hang things on. And depending upon the time that you have and the interest that you have from the other person, depends upon what you say and how you say it. But the framework, the structure, if you will, is the same, really. And then I can wheel out, the main reason people use me. And again, I would never say this. I mean, it just never would I say these things.
It would be more like, I've been in business for however many years, and I've sold.
Yeah, I mean, it's a track record is only a tiny amount of people have built and sold a business. It's tiny, really. To have done that twice, clearly, I must have some inkling as to what I'm doing.
Would you do the old, when I sold my second business, it was very different to the first.
I can do it that way, really. But it's a very fine line between providing credibility and boasting, and you've got to be on that line. Too far one way or the other, and too far one way, and it's not going to have any effect. Too far on the other, and they just think you're boasting and shut you out. So, whatever. But you can get that for yourself, and then. I've got a testimonial wall, which I'm sure some of you have seen. If you haven't and you want to see a testimonial wall, head over to flair.co.uk.
I'll put a link in there.
The top it says testimonials. That's a video wall. It's basically a load of people saying how fabulous I am. And you can see they're not scripted. I haven't told them what to say. They're just saying it the way it is. It puts a tick in the credibility box, which is what it's designed to do. So
what I'd like to just make a quick point on here is, at no point here are you selling anything. There was no sales pitch in any of these comments. Is there? Not 5 of these. Is there a why don't you give me a business card and I'll sell to you? That's not what this is about at all. And I really want to make that point clear.
It isn't about that. If you're selling something, well, probably if you're watching this, you're selling something, then all of your buyers will have a pre-buying zone and a buying zone. So the pre-buying zone is when they're thinking they might need something. If it's like a car, we always use that as an example then. My car's breaking down, or it looks a bit shabby, or I just feel like a new car. And they're thinking about it and looking at car magazines and whatever. They're not doing anything about it, just considering. That's the pre-buying zone. The buying zone is when they're out looking at cars and doing test drives and getting prices and that kind of stuff. So the best time to be able to connect with someone, a potential buyer, is the pre-buying zone, because then you're in the mix really early on. If you're in the buying zone, it could be too late. You might be able to wheel in if you've got a strong enough proposition. But if it's the same as everybody else's pretty much, then no. You know what? We're already down the track with these people. So what you're trying to do is that, the rest of the circle, by the way, is the non-interested zone, the NI zone. They're just not interested in buying or talking about what you sell because they don't want to buy it. They're not even thinking about buying it. So during that stage, that's when we use content to attract and begin conversations. And that's when we're starting to leak out our key messages during that stage. So these little jigsaw-sized pieces of key message are going out there during that period, and they're sinking in. So as for the person that contacted me earlier in the week, when the time is right for them, when they move into the pre-buying zone, which is where he is, they're already decided that you should be in that mix. I'm sure there are other people. I'm sure he's not just talking to me. Maybe he is. I don't know. But you're in the mix, which is where you want to be. And that's what social media has done for you. That's what content has done for you. And that is what your key messages have done for you. Massively so. And I think that the very heart of this is to figure out these key messages in a way that when you articulate them, it's concise and it's natural and it's compelling. It's a strong word, isn't it? Compelling. Resonates a little bit. That's interesting. I get that. Because then, don't forget, all marketing really is an exclusive activity, not an inclusive activity. And this is a big mistake many people make in business. They want to include as many people as they can in their world in the belief that some of them will stick. But that's not the case. All you're doing is making it harder to find the potential buyers, because there's loads of other people that will never buy from you. It's not about inviting and getting 100 people to your event. It's figuring out the 10 people at that event who would be interested in buying from you. So marketing is an exclusive activity. We want to exclude the people that we'll never trade with, because what's left we can go for. And that's a really important point. So these key messages are a way of doing that. So if you're not one of these people that I trade with and you don't have this problem, well, I'm wasting your time. We should kind of go our separate ways, really. Yeah. And all of this is about bringing people together that should buy or could buy from you.
Yeah.
So that when they hit the pre-buying zone,
You're an
either
option.
one of your messages just happens to drop it. Oh yeah, okay. When I used to run, I remember I picked up a really, really big client, one of the top 10 agencies in this country, huge business, $1 billion business, because I knew the guy that ran it, and he happened to get one of my newsletters back in the day when I was talking about something that him and his business had been talking about, and he emailed me back. Timing. It's just timing, really. It's just pre-buying zone. Oh yeah, okay. I'll contact back and talk about it. So, but these key messages are the thing that make that connection for you, massively so.
Okay. All right. Well, we're kind of coming towards the end of our time now, so I'm going to do a brief summary. So what we really spoke about today is key messages aren't to be used in a 90-second elevator speech moment where you just talk at someone. That's not what they're about. It's about feeding in through your social media, your sales collateral, when you have conversations with people. It's about giving them sort of enough information that they have a connection with you and they just go to the next stage. And that next stage is not selling, it's not buying something from you, it's having another conversation with you or connecting with you or being in a space where they're more likely to interact with you. That's all an elevator speech is going to do. But in that time, if they connect with you, you are still threading those key messages out in different ways to sort of strengthen that relationship when you haven't actually, you're not selling to them, but it sort of is subtly, I suppose, would be.
You're just lifting yourself above the crowd a little bit. That's what that means. There's all these people out there, perhaps, that do what you do. You just elevated yourself. Elevator speech. Yeah, we could read purpose it, couldn't we?
Maybe
When
that's
we
what
do
maybe
that
we've
way
been
around,
meaning the
we
whole
didn't
time.
plan that. Yeah, fabulous. But you are elevating yourself slightly, bringing yourself above everybody else, so that you get noticed and engaged with, and that's important. I think that's the thing that makes a real difference when you're trying to sell things. Which is why I said, if you nail these, you will win more new clients. You absolutely will. I mean, obviously, if you're rubbish, you won't. Or if your key messages are rubbish, you won't. But let's assume you nail the key messages. None of our listeners and you're good at what you do, then it's inevitable. It's statistically inevitable that you will. But most people have never done that or don't do it well enough,
Okay, perfect.
One last thing before we do this. Have you ever been to an event, or you yourself, or watched other people, and you have to introduce yourself and they haven't got a clue what they're saying?
I hate it.
All right.
When I was younger, 100%. When we first started out, I'd just go and I'd be like, "I work for a consultancy." That's why I never wanted to go, because I didn't know the answer to those questions. It's a very intimidating question. Or they start answering the question that you've asked here, and then they end up over here.
Or they move straight into sell mode. I'm a so and so and so. So if anybody wants one of those, I'm your man. It's like, really?
No, shut down me.
Did you just say that?
Yeah, I'll never buy from you that. So, yes, I think this has been a fantastic show. Now, what I am going to do, Mike, in a second is I'm going to do the usual where I come to you and ask you about the one step. But just to let everybody know, next week we have the wonderful Helen Phillips on. And she, I believe, Mike, is going to be talking to us about time management. We
are. I think something that everybody suffers from. We all have a go at it, do it for a bit, and then slip back. And Helen's going to talk to us about a slightly deeper approach to managing the time that you have and being uber efficient. I, for one, will be re-watching the show after I've appeared on it. I'll be doing the Saturday morning rerun because I need to watch this. I need to get involved.
We will need the time management. We'll need time management. Perfect. So I just got this fantastic comment from Darren, elevating oneself.
Boom! Yes.
He's a professional.
Thank you, Darren. Darren's coming on the show fairly soon, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So
we're all excited. It's going to be a good one. So, Mike, I'm coming to you now for that final thing. Someone's watching this, they're thinking, right, key messages is something that I want for me, or it's something that I want for my team. First step, what's the first thing that they need to do?
Okay, so you need to define who your ideal clients are concisely, like 4 words. Right. I mean, really, really concisely. And then the triggers that they would need you, specifically you, which is why you is in capitals. So not if you're a recruitment company, not this is why I would need a recruitment company. This is why I would need your flavor of it. In other words, a problem that you specifically aim to cure for them in the way that you do things. So your unique approach to it. That's the thing. Because the more you can do that, the more you'll connect with people. And this is about excluding people. Don't forget that. This is not about trying to gather as many people as you can, which means your message is very mushy. and indistinct. This is about trying your best to limit it to people that you trade with, you do well with, and you want to work with. And then when you do that, they connect, you're much more likely to make a sale. Tremendously so.
Perfect. Very much, Mike. I think this has been a fantastic show today. I very much enjoyed doing it. We've been having some lovely comments in the comment section. So, and a lot of people are very excited about next week. I think Helen's going to have a lot on her hands because people help me, Helen. Anyway, thank you so much for everybody watching today. And thank you for Mike for being just your fabulous self, really. Tropical garb.
Yeah, sorry, I got a bit of a cold as well, a bit of a snotty one. Apologies for that. Got it from a lovely granddaughter. She's very generous like that.
She is very generous like that. And hopefully he won't have that next week. And we hope we see you there.
Okay, we'll see you then, guys.